Welcome to Kitchen Table Conversations with Reverend K. Lindahl. I'm so happy to have you in my virtual kitchen. And I want to start by saying that, first of all, these calls are all about having deeper conversations about the topics that I cover in the Liminal Odyssey. And we don't know where they're going to go, and they're not really scripted, although I've always come prepared with things that I know about you. And it wasn't hard, Kay, because I've known you for 20 plus years, longer than 20 years. And but before I go there, I just want to say that we have a mutual friend in Monica Willard, who is the who was just retired from being the UN representative to the United Religions Initiative, of which you were part of the origination of, and very much influenced so much of its early growth and development. And I was in leadership there at some point too later on. But anyway, Monica insisted that I include the symbols that I have in my chapters on the various program promotions for the different calls. So I'm just going to show you here the ideogram right here in the corner, and this changes for every call. It kind of circulates between the 12, but that ideogram is the symbol of Ma, and that's the Japanese symbol or ideogram to represent the space in between. That sacred space in between, and it's symbolized by the sun between two gates. And we know, yeah, isn't that beautiful? And originally I only had one symbol that was going to be over a watermark on all of the pages. And yet one morning I woke up at 3 o'clock and said, no, there has to be different energies for every chapter. And that's where that was the second symbol I found. And I was so, and that dove me into a real understanding, another concept of the sacred art of listening, which I want to talk to you about. Your bio is going to be listed here below this video, but I would love to formally introduce you if I could. Yeah, thank you. So, and it is a robust bio, as it should be. So I'm just going to read a little bit of it to give everybody who doesn't know you a better understanding of who you are before they hear you. You have been described as an inspired presence with passionate energy, by me many times at least. You're the author of The Sacred Art of Listening, Practicing the Sacred Art of Listening, and How Does God Listen, and co-edited Women, Spirituality, and Transformative Leadership, Where Grace Meets Power, which is how I describe you all the time. You're a certified listening professional, and you have presented your work in diverse groups, local, regional, national, and international. For the past 29 years, the daily practice of centering prayer has been transformative in your life, and you founded the Listening Center with the mission of exploring the sacred nature of listening. You're a dedicated spokesperson in the interfaith movement, and you've participated in the board of directors for the Rumi Education Center, the Interfaith Observer, which is a wonderful online magazine, and Women and Spirit and Faith, as well as former ambassador for the Parliament of the World's Religion and past trustee for the Global Council of the United Religions Initiative. You're the past chair of the North American Interfaith Network, and you're an ordained interfaith minister and an honorary canon to the Cathedral Center of St. Paul in the Episcopal Diocese of Los Angeles. And that's only part of your bio. So it's really an honor to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. When you read that off, it's like, for me, looking back now, it's like, wow, you really were involved in a lot of things. And it's also the looking back and saying, I could never have designed the life that I am leading still. And everything has led to the next thing. But at the time, I never would have known that. And it's just like, I look back and say, that's pretty, wow, what a life you're living. Right.
And I can honestly say that that I think that's because you live in your authentic integrity. I think that you never know, like you say, where your path, I mean, we think we do, don't we? We think we've got it all charted out, or we should have it all charted out, which creates so much anxiety and it really chips away at not only our confidence, but our a sense that we're okay, you know, and that we really are gifted with, as Jean Shinoda Bolen calls it, a divine assignment, a planetary assignment. And when you live in the direction of that, and that just is about listening, right? Then you can look back when somebody reads your bio and go, wow, I've done a lot. Yeah. But hey, you don't know the impact you have had on so many other people either. And I've gushed all over you, haven't I? For decades, about how just you being a model of interfaith. You didn't stand up and go, I'm a model of interfaith and I'm going to be this so that I can teach other people what it looks like. But you lived it. And so you were a model for me. I may never have started Sarah or had the confidence or the courage or able to like even get an idea of that this was a possibility had I not been a part of your community work just for a tiny little bit in the very beginning. So
for saying that, and one never knows, you know, what seeds get planted in whatever you do. And you are also an example of that. You have taken your seeds and planted them in many places as well, and you don't know the impact of that. You may never know, but you are making a difference in what you are doing as well. I think that's what each one of us is called to do that.
Right.
It's I guess it's almost like we think we have to find that, and it really finds us. And because when we keep looking for something that, what is mine to do, what is my divine assignment, we're so involved in the looking that we miss it. Whereas if we just allow it to come to us and just keep that open space, at least this is what I'm at this point in my life, this is how I look at it, having that openness to just be aware and follow that, whatever that guidance is, just follow that guidance. Your divine assignment will appear, and you will actually be in your divine assignment by that kind of. I don't know if this is making any sense.
Well, for me it is.
What I'm thinking right now.
It absolutely does. And it's really hard to, I think it's very elegant, very simple to do, but the concept when the moment comes, how do we remember to slow down to the sound of that inner guidance and recognize it, because it's knocking on our doors all day long. It's falling at our feet all day long.
Yeah. It really is. And that's, you know, just that awareness, I think. And that's one of the things I've learned, I think, from this listening work for all these years now, is that just to be aware of what's there right in front of us. And that has really guided me for a long time now. And it's just, I don't think about it so much, but when I, you know, like a conversation like this, it's like, yeah, that really is. That's what's been guiding me all these years.
Yeah. I think we've been we have been duped by a system that has us believing that we have to follow someone else's, you know, way. And I was listening to a recording of you a while back that actually inspired something I put in the book, and that's that information is coming at us at such a rapid speed. And you look at television commercials today, everything is like that. There's 20 minutes of commercials now in a half an hour program, it feels like, and it's all like 30 bits of information coming at us so fast. And it doesn't really give us a moment to pause and go, wait, is that what I consider full on happiness? Is that going to really make my life fulfilling? We don't have time for that, but there's plenty of time to remember the number to call, to get that thing, buy their stuff. And yet, so we really have to pay attention to that too.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's an easy practice, really. It's just like, let's start with TV commercials. You
Right.
know?
Right. Yeah. And it's really getting to that, because I think what you said about, we've been led to believe that we have to find the information out there that's going to, we have to follow somebody else's information. And what it really is finding our own path, and trusting in our own path, and that we each have a path. So many, it's like we almost think we don't have one and we have to follow somebody else's path. But it's not that we don't get information and learn from other people. Yeah, we certainly do. But it's just like how incorporating that and into our own beingness, and then finding our path and trusting our own voices coming from our own inner being, inner guidance. And that's not easy in our society. It's hard.
I love that you say that listening isn't just an art, it's a practice.
Mhm.
It's how to prepare
Yes.
to listen, and that requires practice.
Yes. I think that's the thing that for me has been a real big learning, is that it's not it that there is preparation involved. And the preparation for me are my spiritual practices. And I call them spiritual practices, and other people might not call them spiritual practices, but that's what, that's the way I look at them. And it's the slowing down, taking time for stillness, taking time to be quiet, have some quiet space in your life. It's like Joan Chittister, I think it says that the silence is a place where I go to know what I think. Something like that. And but it's getting comfortable with that silence. That's one big practice that is so missing in our society. It's like we have to do something all the time. We have to go, 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 go. And yes, there's action, and I appreciate the action, because nothing happens without action. And it's what informs that action through the silence. Maybe that's how we get the real calling to go into action, so that when we are in action, we are being someone who is being called to that action, rather than just doing.
And I benefited from you being in that way. That's the definition of being a spiritual activist,
Mhm.
and operating in enlightened self-interest.
Yeah.
When you're living your life in a way that benefits you as well as the betterment of humanity,
Mhm.
then it serves us. And like you said from the very beginning, you just have no idea what good you're doing out in the world.
Or where it's going to take you either.
Oh, yeah. So where is it taking you that surprised you?
Oh, well, I mean, if I look back, it's just like there's just been so many curves and twists and turns along the path. Although there's one major thread that follows it through that I didn't realize until I grew up, until I was older. Um, but the threads, it's like first I was a nurse, and then I got married, and then I had 5 children, and then I did work with the Laity League, and then I did work with something called Seminars in Sexuality. Then I became a financial planner, and at the same time as that, I was getting involved in the interfaith work, and then that led into the listening work, and it's just this pathway that seems not connected, but there is a connection to all of it. For me, that connection, it's about teaching. Everything I've done has been involved in teaching one way or another, but not a traditional teaching.
Right.
Not in a classroom teaching for the most part. It's been more either one-on-one, or like you say, it's kind of almost like modeling and just living my life in such a way that people can take something from that and learn something from that. But it's just, there's a teaching element involved in that. And I had no idea. In fact, and when I was in high school, way back when, there were 3 things that girls were advised to do by the guidance counselor. It was secretary, or it was teacher, or it was nurse.
Right.
And my guidance counselor told me she thought I'd be a really good teacher. And I said, no, no.
Right.
I guess my vision of a teacher was someone that was in a classroom all the time. And that wasn't me. nothing, I see that as a really high calling to be in the classroom and teaching. I have
course.
complete admiration for teachers. So I don't want
But
that
it's top down, right? And you're inside out.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how I see it, and just all the different aspects that have come up through that and the traveling that I've done and all those things have just made such a difference in my life and how I see the world.
Yeah, yeah. And I like that you mentioned that it was because of your, having grown into this understanding
Mhm.
through, which is where you collect all the wisdom and all the lessons and all the heartbreaks and all the bliss and all the experiences lead you into that crone wisdom.
Mhm.
Yet you are, you still embody, I think, and Crohn's, I believe, absolutely embody the maiden and the mother as well, that you really are a model of that.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I'm I'm 84, and I can hardly believe it when I say it, but that's what I am because that's what the numbers show. But it's just like there's this um, that my inner being is still my inner being. I'm still who I am inside, and that doesn't feel old. And yet I feel that I have gained experience and hopefully some wisdom over the years, and I certainly am in a place now where I have a certain serenity and a certain I guess it's acceptance of what is, so that I don't get really crazed about almost anything anymore because it's my time is better spent just being who I am and doing what I do where I am.
Yeah. That's also living in the trust frequency too.
Yeah.
And that trust frequency that everything happens for us too. There's got to be an element of that. It's not just putting it aside, it's alchemizing it, right? You're truly alchemizing what's happening so that you can really move on to the things that are really truly important and that matter.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. One of our, oh gosh, it was one of our very earliest Sarah meetings. And that was about 2001, or no, it was 2002, maybe 2003. You came and spoke to us about the sacred art of listening, and you had us sit in 20 minutes of silence. And that was the first time I'd ever done that. And it was wild. And I think it was the first time for many of us. I think there might have been 10 or 11 of us. I can't remember. I remember the room we were in. I remember whose home we were in, but I don't remember exactly who was there. Yet I remember noticing all these things and I'm thinking, oh, there's something wrong and I'm not doing this right. But the first thing you said when you brought us back into the room together was, did you notice the ticking of the clock? Did you notice the sound of the bird outside? Or whatever it was that I was thinking, I'm not supposed to be noticing these things. So you really teach us how to listen. Can you talk about some of that? Can you talk about some of those mechanical things? I wanted first, well, go ahead. I can't wait to hear what you have to say. I've got all of these lessons that I've learned from you that have worked for me, but I want to hear what you have to say.
Well, I think that the major preparation for listening is a practice. One of the first ones, there are three. One is the silence and the stillness and being comfortable with that. And it doesn't have to be 20 minutes. It can be 10. It can be 10 minutes. It can be 5 minutes. It can even be 1 minute. I've read a book called, I think it's called Mindfulness Minutes or something like that. And they've done some research that shows that even a 1 minute break will help alter your brain so that you can actually be more present, because our brains are working so hard all the time. And it's like, let's take a time out and just breathe for a minute. So, I mean, sometimes I'll just say, breathe, remember to breathe, just focus on your breathing just for a minute, just be silent. And that creates a space in which we can listen, because if there really is no listening without silence, because we can't do two things at the same time. We can't speak and listen at the same time. And so it's that practice of being still that I think is so essential to the art of listening. And then the second one is learning how to listen to yourself, listen to your own voice, cultivating that reflection of getting in touch with your own wisdom. And that's part of it too, because sometimes when we get in touch with our own wisdom, then it's easier for us to discern when it's time to speak and when it's time to listen. And one of the ways we get in touch with our own inner wisdom is to ask ourselves a question. And the question is, what wants to be said next? Or what wants to be done next? Rather than what do I want to say next or what do I want to do next? Because by switching that question around to what wants to be said next, that causes us to go inside and say, well, I don't know, what does want to be said next? And then we pause. And in that pause, it's when it gives our inner wisdom a chance to show up for us, because we're so busy doing and saying what I want to do. I've got to go this, I got to go there, and just pausing and saying what wants to be said next. Oh, and then you come up with something that you probably wouldn't have thought of before. And another way I say that it's going from head thinking to heart thinking. We just get ourselves engaged in that. And then the third one is just to be more present, to get more presence in your life, and to just practice being present in your life. And like one of the practices for being present in your life is just to take a minute when you're maybe fixing a cup of coffee or something, and be aware of what you're doing for every second of that minute, and just practice doing that. And say, like, for example, I'm saying, I'm walking over to the kitchen, I'm getting some water, I'm putting in, whatever it is, however you make your coffee. And then at the end of that time, you will have been present to that minute in a way that you hadn't, that normally you're on automatic. You just sort of go through the motions. And people who do that exercise sometimes tell me that that's the only minute they remember out of a whole day, because we're so busy trying to, what we call multitask, that we are, and we really, our brains, neuroscience has shown that our brains actually cannot do two things at the same time. We do them sequentially, very, very fast, but it wears our brains out. Yeah. So, that's, things happen when we try to do too many things at the same time. And sometimes we have to, but it's not like multitasking is wrong, but it's like, so the practice is to unitask. Do one thing at a time. That's a practice.
Wow.
Those are the three kinds of areas that I think of. That's a lot. So that's what it is for me now.
I remember when, oh gosh, I remember early on when I heard you say that 1 minute is all you need. Mm-hmm. And that really gave me license. Mm-hmm. I said, okay, that I can do. And for some reason, I don't know why, every time I walked into, we had this great laundry room in my other house. Every time I walked in the laundry room, I remembered to pause. I don't know why. Maybe while I was talking to you on the phone, I was in the laundry room. I don't remember why, but every time I walk into the laundry room, I pause. Mm-hmm. So I created a neural pathway. Right. I trained my brain to remember that. Then I know that we happen to go to the bathroom about 5 times a day. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to practice it there too. Right. Whenever I walk into the bathroom, and you're going to sit down probably. So, just use that moment. Yeah. And that if you can remember that, mm-hmm. you're going to create those neural pathways, which makes it a practice, right. which is how you prepare, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then when you want to listen to someone else, you have the muscle memory, the neural pathways that will enable you to just be present rather than going over your to-do list or what you're going to say or how you're going to respond. And just, so you can be present with the other person, because that's one of the greatest gifts we can give to each other is our presence.
I love that quote by Douglas Steers.
Yeah, exactly. To listen to another soul into a condition of discovery and disclosure may be almost the greatest service any human being ever does for another. It's a profound statement. Yeah.
Yeah. I use that quote in the Liminal Odyssey book, and almost everybody who has read it mentions that quote.
Really?
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And they want to know about the dog, but,
Right,
but
sure.
it's those two things that really spark people's imaginations. It's really said in such a beautiful way. And is there anything else that wants to be said? And I use that in journaling too.
Mm-hmm.
There almost always is. I love how you add that.
Yeah.
I remember we were in Australia at the Parliament of the World's Religions, and there was you had a workshop in a small room,
Right.
and it soon became evident you needed a bigger room. And it struck me how thirsty, how hungry everyone is to understand what it means to truly listen. But what surprised me, and might surprise many others, is that you also walk us through an experience or invite the experience to be listened to,
Mm-hmm.
that condition of disclosure and discovery.
Right.
That is just unbelievable. It's unfathomable, and you can't imagine that what is going to get disclosed. And I remember because at one point you had us all find us whoever we were sitting close to, maybe,
Right.
some stranger, and I sat down on the floor with this lovely man from England, and my whole life burst open for me in that moment. And it has ever since I've had that sort of experience. It's breathtaking.
Yeah, it's what Douglas Steer is talking about. It's that when we listen to each other in that way, I mean, it just opens us up. It opens our hearts up. It opens our minds up. It opens everything up by taking that, because most often in the way we live our lives today, we're sort of partially listening and partially doing something else or thinking about something else. And people get that. It's just we don't necessarily have it on the top of our minds. So, oh yeah, they're not really listening to me, but inside we know that in some way. And yet when we are listened to, and someone who's really listening to us, it's like we get fed, we get nurtured, we fill up, and we find ourselves saying things that we never would have said before, if we when we realize that someone's not really paying full attention to us.
Yeah.
And there's what I talk a lot about. It's the CPA syndrome, which is continuous partial attention. It's like in our culture, we're continuously paying partial attention to everything, but we're not paying full attention to anything. And so that notion of paying full attention is really powerful, and it's what people are yearning for. We're so hungry to be listened to in that culture.
And I was listening entirely to you, but I got excited when you said something. We spend 9% writing, 16% reading, 25% speaking, and 50% listening.
Mm-hmm.
50% is all we give or don't give to intentional listening.
Well, and about 75% of that time, we're not really paying attention. Out of 50% of communication, the time we're communicating, we're really not paying attention. And that's the CPA part. We're just paying partial attention. And so it's just it's the practice of opening ourselves up to preparing to listen to other people and to ourselves and to our spirit, our guides, whatever we want to call it. So it's all part of very organic. It's not a linear experience.
At some level, I know your angels were listening, because, and I think everybody should write a book or chart their Indra's net of their life.
Yeah.
And look at who was responsible for those experiences, especially the ones that were synchronistic or not, because then you'll see the synchronicity. Because I discovered a lot of synchronicities as I'm writing a story about these life experiences, then looking at how that appeared to me. I don't know that I would have been so interested in writing a book that started with What About the Dog Story and Peace Sunday, had I not seen the synchronistic or the magical miraculous experience of eventually meeting Leland Stewart.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was made possible because you called me one day and said, hey, would you mind giving Leland a lift?
Yeah.
Perhaps you didn't know the two. I'm going to guess you didn't know that there was a connection between the man who started Peace Sunday and my experience at Peace Sunday that would just blow up my life in such a miraculous way.
Yeah.
Yet it was because you put those, put us together in that, in that very, in maybe insignificant way, but it was really insignificant.
Yeah, and it's those connections that come up, and the more you connect with other people, the more of the connections happen. It's like the Indra's net of life, because I know I'm so grateful for my experience in interfaith, because I have connected with people in interfaith for decades, and they have led to so many other connections, and then you connect back with somebody that you met, 1991 or 2 or 3, and you're still connected because of the interfaith work, and yet you've had this whole other life in between, and yet there you are again, you're connected with this person, and you've been able to connect them with other people, and then other people, they connect you with other people, and it's just, I love that part of the work that I've been engaged in. It's just really wonderful.
Yeah, and I haven't been in interfaith as long as you have, but for about 20 years. Actually, our 20-year anniversary of Sarah is this year, and it was the morning of 9/11 that woke me up. But I happen to believe, not to take credit too much anyway, for all of these experiences, or all these, or whatever accolades or whatever experiences that have brought me some, award of something, and we do have to accept that we listened.
Yeah.
And that, we can honor that.
Absolutely.
But we're never alone. And that seed that you mentioned, those seeds, we'll never know the forest of possibility, but we have to be the sacred gardener of that one seed.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And just it's like tossing out the seeds and just trusting that they will grow where they're planted. Those that are ready to grow will grow, and those that aren't won't. And just said that, but that's just, the job is to plant the seeds, is to go out there and plant the seeds.
Yeah. Thank you, Kay. I love this conversation. Is there anything else that wants to be said?
Well, we could go on for quite a while, I'm sure, if we really started going with it, because there's just so much, I think, and especially in the world right now, that is so full of chaos everywhere. It seems like there's chaotic force out in the universe right now, and that part of how to live through that is to be centered and grounded and aware and present, and the word just coming to my mind right now is kindness. How important it is to be kind in these moments of chaos. Because there's somebody that says that we never know what's going on in someone else's life, so just be kind. If somebody's acting out, you don't know what's going on in their life. Be kind. And someone has said something or doing something, and you say, oh, that's just kind of a strange thing to do, but you don't know what's going on in your life inside. Be kind. It's like, so kindness as a practice, I think, is something that will guide us through this time of chaos.
Yeah.
And living in our lives in our own, I cannot impact what's happening in the world. I mean, I can't impact climate change as a whole. I can't impact all these big issues as a whole, but I can impact what is going on in my life and what's going on around me, and how I be in those circumstances, and what I do where I am. So I can impact that, and I can be that force for good, for love in the world. But I think that's what everybody is really longing and yearning for, and I think it's really important.
Yeah, and remembering that seed,
Mhm.
that we don't fault the seed for disintegrating so something new can break through.
Mhm. Exactly. Yeah.
And we can be a sacred gardener, we can be kind to it
Mhm.
and nurture it, because somebody coming at us with a bullhorn may just be like that seed falling apart
Right.
so something better can come through. I mean, that's, I think, represented in the piling on of crises right now on our planet.
Yeah.
And I get a little giddy about it, but I'm certainly respectful of the fact that there are a lot of people suffering because of it, including women and girls right now in our own country.
Right.
Um, but if we can remember to listen to what that seed is telling us and then act from there
Yeah.
in our integrity, so that we can remember that crone wisdom that you don't have to even be of a certain age, although it certainly streams more freely there, but we all have that wisdom in us. So listen to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Pay
Yeah.
attention. Pay attention.
Yeah.
Listen to it. Be aware, and just just be the light. Be the light that we each have. Just this is kind of sounds trite because it's used as a term that's used a lot, but there is light in every one of us, and the more we shine that light, the greater the good that we will notice in the world. One of the things that I've thought of recently, for I don't know why, it's just come to my mind several times in this past week, and through various conversations and things, is that we don't describe the world we see. We see the world we describe.
Mm,
How we talk about things matters,
yeah.
and our language matters. And if to talk about, if we don't describe the world we see the world we describe. So our description of the world impacts what impacts the world. And
Beautiful.
I've been thinking about that a lot just this past week. I don't know why, but I share it out with you.
No, it's very clear to me that awareness, attention, questioning assumptions,
Mhm.
and um, our um, um, attitude
Mhm.
frame our world.
Yes,
And
yes,
it's that attitude, which is going to reflect, because our words are just energy manifested, right?
yeah,
So we have to be impeccable with our words.
yeah, exactly. The
It's
more we
about
do-
being impeccable with our words, which requires us to listen to where our thoughts are coming from.
Mhm.
Everything comes back to listening.
Yeah,
It really does. Body awareness. Wow, what's that knot in my throat telling me?
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've just started one of the things that I've done. I just recorded a video, about a 15 or 20-minute video. I've created practices called spiritual listening practices. And it's about listening to your mind, listening to your body, listening to your soul, listening to your spirit, listening to the earth, um, listening to your life. It's either two more. I can't remember what the other two are right now, but it's a meditative practice where exactly, what is that? What you said, what is it not in my throat telling me? I said, well, listen to your body. What is your body telling you now? Is it too hot? Is it too cold? Does it need to move? But just creating that awareness of that's listening.
Right.
Listening. It's all listening, the whole thing.
I had a conversation with a friend of mine, Brenda Gustin, who I was just telling her, all of my cells right now are running amok. I'm just vibrating and I don't feel good right now. She goes, honey, those are just your cells waiting for your direction.
That's great.
Oh yeah, I'm in charge. My thoughts create my
Yeah,
reality and my body. I've got control over this.
that's great.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
But if I weren't really listening, sometimes when I sit down or I go, okay, I'm aware that I am just, my cells are running amok. I even if I just spin my chair around, I may not just go sit in my meditation chair, do anything, or I just close my eyes.
Yeah,
I realize, oh, I didn't even pay attention. There's a lot of things going on in here.
yeah, yeah.
without, well, it's running in the background while I'm trying to just drive through my day.
Yeah, that's when the minute is just,
Yeah.
it's that minute of spinning around in your
Yes.
chair, can just it's like a intervention. You intervene with this constantness of going around, which is
Right.
normal for us, seems like. And you just say, wait a minute, time out. I'm going to breathe. I'm going to spin around in my chair, whatever it is you're going to do, and then I'll come back to where I was. And but you'll have reset all these little
Yeah.
cells that are waiting for you to say to breathe. They're waiting for you to breathe. Say, would you please
Yeah.
stop and breathe for a minute? And then we can go on. I mean, we're happy to do the work, but we need some fresh air here.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever that could be. But if you think in terms of your cellular being, I think that would be a good little picture to have.
Love it. I love it. Well, it all comes back to listening. Thank you, Kay.
Yeah, yeah, you're welcome. Yeah,
Thank you.
for me that this is what I've been called to do, is to share this work on listening. It's beyond anything I could have thought of on my own, and but it's been called for me to share it. It just like comes in and goes out like that.
I love your book, The Sacred Art of Listening. It's worn on my shelf. It's been well opened. I love that you have a mandala also to meditate on.
Mine were hand drawn by Amy Schnapper. Beautiful mandalas. I mean, she paints her mandalas. Amy just did them freehand. She made a circle. She did a circle
Oh,
freehand, and she drew them. We collaborated on that book, and she would read the topic of each of my little meditations, and then she would draw. But she didn't read the meditation till after she'd drawn the mandala. So these were completely her visions of what came to her when she just heard the title of the chapter. So
yeah.
it was amazing. I love it. I love those.
I love that. Jerry Littlejohn is doing the same for me with music for the audiobook.
Wonderful.
I sent her the titles and she's a Native American flute maker.
Oh.
And she's actually creating music that's in the tone of the energy.
Yeah.
And there'll be a record, an album.
That's wonderful.
I know. And these things just happen and you can never plan them, can you?
No. Your book is going to just take you places that you have no idea.
Yeah. Just because I've learned to listen.
Well, just you will. You do. You listen. But it's just the fact that you really made that book you. It's your book. It's your journey, and it's so beautiful the way you put it together. So,
Thank you.
I'm just thrilled for you, and I look forward to seeing where it does take you.
Well, I find you in almost every few chapters. Surprised me. I think everybody should write a book and then get out of the way because it wrote me.
Yeah, exactly. Take the time to do that. But you had to take time to do that too.
I got to take time to do that. I didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
If I were to force myself to sit down right now and write another book, I don't know. No, I don't know that I could or I'd want to. I just birthed the baby. I've still got it. I'm still exhausted. Sleepless nights. But yeah, it just had to happen. And having authored books.
Yeah.
How they happen. And that they were written in that manner because you can feel it in the book. You can read it in pages. It's breathed in between the letters, that how it was written for your book. So they'll be here on the site here too.
Yeah, wonderful.
For people to find. Yeah. Thank you, Kay. I love this chat. I really appreciate you being at my table.
I'm grateful to be here. It's really good. I like being in your kitchen.
Yeah, I have this great table. I just thought, okay, well, kitchen table conversations, let's use it. Because it's, with COVID and being so far away, this served me well. It's enlightened self-interest. I get people at my table virtually, and I also get to do this. So thank you very much. I'm so grateful for you.